There we go. What's going on, everybody? We are live Friday, May 24th, and Fridays mean in the afternoon we're looking at Yahoo and Yahoo specifically. We are going to take a look at some of our favorite plays from pitching and hitting. What's up?
No, that was me. I was trying to watch the video back, make sure.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, somebody's in my ear. We're going to take a look at pitching. We're going to take a look at some hitting. I'll run some crunches, see what sort of structure we're getting. And I've got Jake and the Boss Man with me today. Alex, Jake, what's going on, guys?
What's up?
Yeah, not much. Excited to talk some Yahoo. I'm excited to play this management fee-free tournament tonight.
Yeah, I shared that earlier today on the strategy show. Let me pull it up again so that everybody can see. Is it filled by now?
I would imagine it is. I got mine in earlier today.
Yeah. So earlier today, it was a $3 buy-in, 2,000 people, 2K, 600, 2K prize pool. Is that what it was? 3K prize pool?
Let me check. Right.
It was a $3 tournament, 10 max, but no management fee whatsoever. You're not paying a single cent back to Yahoo to get into that contest. It's the best tournament that's running today.
Yep, it's filled. $6,000 prize pool, 600 to first, 2,000 entries, 10% to first. Pretty good structure overall.
Yeah, that's the no management fee standing out right there. That filled pretty quickly. It's only 2:00 right now. It's already filled. That's the appeal. That's what we're trying to tell people. That's the best thing that you can enter on a given day. If they're running a tournament without a management fee, you want to be in it as quickly as possible. And to do a 10 max, $30. You can get all 10 entries in. I think that's pretty reasonable. If you're looking to sign up on Yahoo, I'm going to drop the link in chat right now. Use that link. Use the promo code AWESOMO, which is one word, obviously. And you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Interesting to note that $30 would have been the exact same amount of money that it would have taken to max enter that no management fee tournament. So if you see that coming up again in the future, you can get it paid for just from YSRPs. All you have to do is use the promo code. You can't really beat that.
No, you can't at all.
We've got quite the interesting Yahoo slate going today. Lots and lots of ownership going to two guys, Noah Syndergaard and Robbie Ray. And then we're casting a pretty big net, taking a shotgun spray of everybody else. So I'm really anxious to dig in and take a look at what everybody wants to do. We'll run some crunches. We'll take a look at everything. I think that we should probably do a little bit of an overview of pitching just to start, since that's really where you're going to be spending, 40-50% of your salary cap. So we're seeing Syndergaard in our original ownership projections at 58% on Yahoo. That feels like a pretty high number to me. I do think he's the best option on the slate. Alex, he's grading out as the top pitcher in terms of raw points in your projections. How do you feel about seeing him in what amounts to 6 out of 10 Yahoo lineups?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's just a pitcher who's projected to do so well that you gotta have him in there. Yeah. I'm not really sure if tonight is the night where that's true. The projection for Syndergaard I have it's like 95th percentile, probably not completely optimal like we saw Scherzer or Cole the other night. So I think he's not lacked to do really well in fantasy, but when you're facing the Tigers at home, and the Tigers are supposed to strike out by my estimation 25.5% of the time compared to their team strikeout rate is that, I should say, and then that's about 10% higher than average. Syndergaard is not the greatest strikeout pitcher. He's only struck out 24% of batters on the year. But with that little boost of 10%, I think you can forecast a pretty good day for him.
Yeah, it feels really safe. No problem slotting him right in for a cash game. Not so sure I need to have that same amount of volume in a GPP with so many other legitimate arms at the top. Jake, outside of Syndergaard in that really high tier, is there a pitcher that stands out more to you that you would want to pivot to?
Maybe Barrios. I like him quite a bit. He's at home. He's going up against the White Sox, and like the White Sox are obviously a great strikeout matchup. Maybe a little bit more dangerous than the Tigers. Barrios has these home road splits that maybe some people don't buy into, but they've been career long at this point. And it's not like he can't get strikeouts. So he's a guy I like at the exact same price at a lesser ownership. I don't have his ownership pulled up, but I know it's much lower.
Yeah, I have it here, 12%.
Oh, yeah. So I like that. Just, completely same lineup construction, but just one differentiation point.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. I really I see so much similarity in some of these guys. I'm assuming today, Alex, based on what I'm looking at from your projections, which we have as a premium feature at awesemo.com. And if you aren't a sub, you can use the promo code MLB Strategy, get 50% off your first month with us. We now have WNBA projections as well. Perfect time to get in on that. 3 months worth of a season. If you get 50% off the first, that's a pretty big discount across 3 months. Do you think you would end up getting to a lot of Blake Snell? He's the most expensive pitcher at $54 today. Clearly big time strikeout stuff, but kind of a difficult matchup. Is paying up for him worth it today?
So Blake Snell on the road versus Cleveland, as you mentioned, not a great matchup. They're definitely above average team, but Blake Snell has been crushing this year so far. His strikeout percentage on the year is 38%, which is just off the charts. I mean, I don't think you can really project him to keep up that rate, but maybe his Rays have figured out something that other teams haven't, or something, because it seems like it wasn't that long ago when Blake Snell wasn't even that great. But the Indians, I have projected the strikeout about 10% less than average. When you factor in Snell's crazy strikeout rate in the year, that's still amounts to a lot of strikeouts. But that price tag of 54, and then the fact that it's the Cleveland Indians have a higher run potential than most teams Snell's going to face. I think he's not a very good value, clocking in at $5 more than Syndergaard on today's slate with a way tougher matchup.
Okay. I mentioned at the top we had 2 guys soaking up a lot of ownership. Syndergaard was the first at 58%. Robbie Ray, $38, coming in at 43% ownership. Second most popular guy in terms of pitching. I mean, these two are far and away the popular options. Syndergaard. Okay. Robbie Ray coming in with your second highest projection of any pitcher on the slate right now. I assume, Rob, you are a big fan of Robbie Ray, and that ownership is not putting you off because of his price.
Yeah, for some reason, I'm having some issues with my spreadsheet here, but Robbie Ray, obviously a good strikeout pitcher as well. The Giants have a team total of 3.4. That's less than Snell's facing. They're not a great strikeout matchup. I have them striking out about average with their projected lineup. Robbie Ray doesn't go super deep in games either. But what is his price on Yahoo right now?
Price
38.
right now, $38.
38, yeah. So you're getting a huge discount, and he's almost at that top tier of pitchers. So I think when you're getting a $10 discount from guys like Syndergaard, Snell, that definitely makes him nice to fit in your lineup, so you can pay for some bats.
I think it'd be safe to say that a Syndergaard Robbie Ray pairing is the most likely cash pairing for 2 pitchers for Yahoo today. Does that seem safe to say?
I think so. I think with Yahoo, there's so many batters that are priced at 7, and you can get crazy value for batters. So it makes sense in a head-to-head to spend up on the top 2 pitchers and then get a lot of that value in. Where in GPPs, that's not nearly as good a strategy.
Sure. Only other guy grabbing any sort of interesting ownership is Drew Pomeranz. He's $28, 17% expected ownership. Jake, do you see Pomeranz as a viable play today at $28?
Yeah, he's a viable play. I mean, great pitching park. I don't think a ton of him as a pitcher. So when it's a guy like, I agree with Ray. I agree with Syndergaard's ownership to some extent, maybe a little bit overowned. And same thing with Pomeranz, but I just don't think, like, I'm not that big of a believer in Pomeranz's skill level. So while he projects out okay, I think I would probably be trying to kind of spread out my ownership in that range for tournaments, especially. And maybe get to a guy like Jake Junis, who obviously a little bit more of a downside there against the Yankees, or some of these other guys in this range like Eichhoff. I don't know. I mean, I just don't really love Pomeranz as a pitcher. So while I understand the price, even Alex said, like, there's a bunch of guys priced at 7. So if it's just one batter to get off of Pomeranz to get up to a guy in the $33 to $38 range, then I'll probably make that pivot.
Okay. Alex, anybody standing out to you below Robbie Ray that isn't named Drew Pomeranz that you think could be interesting as a pay down option for an SP2? We got a question about SP2s in YouTube chat, so that's why I'm kind of directing us there.
Yeah, definitely. Let me look through the list here.
We've got, let's see who stands out. Trent Thornton, Kyle McGowan, depending on how you feel about Jared Eichhoff, Miles Michaelis.
I forgot about McGowan. Any righty going up against the Marlins has been generally an okay strategy this season.
I've only heard the alternative. I can't imagine why you would want to play a pitcher against the Miami Marlins. That's a terrible recommendation, especially for someone named Adam.
That's what I heard. Yeah, he recommended, what was it?
Jake DeGrom.
Yeah, okay. So the best pitcher arguably in the MLB against the worst team. Nice.
Slightly different talent tier than Daniel Mengden, or than Kyle McGowan, rather.
Yep.
So one guy I'm coming up with is Griffin Canning. He has been getting killer strikeouts this year, 28% on the year. He's about the same price as Robbie Ray, so he's not a cash game play at all, but he would be someone where if you have Ray already and you need another mid-price pitcher, you can go with him. 28% strikeouts on the year, facing a Texas team that strikes out more than average. They have some power for sure. Their team total is 4.5, so you're not projecting an ace performance here, and it's a high upside spot where he could get a lot of strikeouts, or he could potentially blow up and give out a lot of runs.
Yeah, he was a guy that Lofty had some interest for on the strategy show this morning. I'm anxious to see where I end up coming in on him as we get closer. Does look like a nice GPP play. Very difficult to recommend in some sort of cash scenario just because of his proximity to Robbie Ray.
Yep.
I see that, Alex, you just put out a little projection refresh, so I just went ahead and grabbed those. I ran some crunches when we first started the show, 400, in fact.
Nice.
I'm curious let's say, Alex, if you had one chance to run a crunch, you would be sticking with a 6-man stack. That would be your base if you only had one stack option to start with.
Yeah, I think that the 6-man is probably the one that gives you the biggest advantage. It gets a little bit more complicated when you have expensive bats because some teams, they might be priced up enough that you can't really stack 6 players just because they're so expensive. So a one-size-fits-all approach isn't necessarily going to work. So the 6 would be my default. But if you want to go for one of those 6-run implied total game teams, then you might have to stack them less just because you can't even afford them.
That makes some sense. On that first crunch, you'd be surprised to know that a lot of Rockies came up as a 6-man stack. I wouldn't have expected that. Based on their monstrous implied total playing in Coors against who I think is one of the worst pitchers in baseball, and David Means.
John Means.
Whatever. John Means. I keep doing that today, and I don't know why. I've said it like casually to a couple people now, and I don't even know who that could possibly be.
Maybe like David Wells.
I would rather take David Wells right now, and he's probably like 60 beers deep.
Yeah. He threw his perfect game. That's how it goes. Right?
Honestly, you could have told me right now that David Wells was no longer alive, and I'd have been like, "Oh, I totally forgot." Feel bad, but I mean, it's not like he was the pitcher of health in the end of his career.
No, that's
So
the point.
the one thing that scared me a little bit off of the Rockies is that I mean, they have a 7 total, which is insane. But their team ownership is the highest on the slate for Yahoo at 16%. That's about what I have their percentage chance of being the top stack.
Wow.
So I think when you have a team with that much ownership, it's pretty hard to justify going there in a GPP just because you're competing with 30% of the other, or assuming that, I guess I should rephrase this. So the 16% is of the whole player pool. So that means more than 16% of lineups are going to have them because you have to roster nine batters. And what I'm seeing in the Rockies lineup is that there are a few really obvious plays.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers, Dahl, Story, Arenado, and Reynolds. And then you got guys like Tapia and Desmond in the projected lineup. And they aren't nearly as good plays just because Tapia and Desmond about average power, about average steals. And their prices are 16 and 20, which on Yahoo is pretty high up there.
Yeah.
So those are just average plays. So I think what you're going to see if you optimize 6 Rockies, there's only 8 to choose from, and you're going to end up with 5 of the 8 almost always: Dahl, Story, Arenado, Reynolds, and Rodgers. And then your lineup's going to look very similar to everyone else's. So if you're going that route, you got to have some way you're being contrarian to really justify it.
No, that makes perfect sense. First lineup sorted by total projection in that 6-man crunch that I ran that gets to the Rockies has Dahl, Tapia, Desmond, Story. No Arenado, though. Brendan Rodgers and Tony Wolters. And that allows you to get to Syndergaard and Ray. Obviously, that's the chalk pairing there, the chalk stack. A one-off Todd Frazier, a one-off Chris Davis. I mean, that feels like an interesting cash lineup in that you're getting a lot of this high-scoring, high-projected team. You're getting the 2 chalk pitchers. I'd expect something in that neighborhood would be cashy. That's probably, I would guess, too many Rockies for a cash lineup. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that's what you're going to end up looking at, which is a more cash-friendly lineup than a GPP-friendly lineup.
Yeah, actually, I don't worry that much about stacking in cash because say you have 6 Rockies and everyone else has 4, like that's essentially like taking 4 of your players out of the picture and you only have a stack of 2.
Right.
So like, I think when you have a chalky team like this, you can stack it up. I don't necessarily think it's optimal, but I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. That's good to know. I didn't know if you would have any thoughts as to having someone like Tapia or Desmond in that lineup, since they're not necessarily the best raw value guys because of their spot.
Yeah, I think if it came up, maybe like if you're playing an evening slate or something, like the core slate essentially. I know Yahoo starts some later slates.
Yeah.
Like you might end up with a cash lineup like that, and I wouldn't shy away from it. But when you have 14 games, it's not likely that all the best values will be on one team.
Yeah, I figured something around 4 Rockies is probably the way to get there, and then still maintain some individually high-valued guys for the rest of the lineup. All right, so if it's not Rockies, Jake, I'm going to throw it to you. What is a team that's standing out to you right now that you think you would want to be targeting in the tournaments today?
Yeah, I just loaded up the top stacks tool and sorted by Yahoo. It looks like a couple teams that are going pretty underowned that I liked before on Yahoo are the Twins, as you know, Josh.
Yeah, well, of course you like the Twins. You're a homer.
Yeah. And then some other teams that are coming up that maybe aren't getting their fair share of ownership. It looks like top. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing Baltimore go up there, and then the Yankees and Cardinals as well.
Okay.
Cardinals would probably be my favorite out of those.
Okay. I just realized that when I ran this crunch that I didn't set any player caps, and I was like, I'm only getting like six-man stacks, and it's like 60% ownership to the Rockies. I just realized that everybody was set to 100. It's probably not going to be helpful for this exercise.
Well, I mean, if you, I guess you're not very well diversified if you wanted to just enter those in, yeah. But that does give you a sense of what's going to show up in everyone's crunch. Not everyone is that good at diversifying, so I think every single person who's multi-entering is going to have one Rocky stack at least.
Yep.
I think that's pretty good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're really difficult to get away from. Like I said, I had everybody set to 100%. The only parameter that I set was that everybody needs a 6-player stack, and that was 41% Colorado Rockies for 6-man stacks. So like, yeah, people are going to get a lot of them. For what we're trying to do, which is, get a decent cross section of everything so that we can see the way lineups are built. Having 40% Rocky stacks is not really the best from a content perspective. Not a lot to talk about after that one.
Well, I have to agree with Jake. I think Baltimore is a great option. For some reason, people are gravitating to the 7-team total for Rockies, but not to that 6-team total for Baltimore, which is still top 95% probably in terms of baseball totals. And the team is reasonably priced. The average batter is about 15. So I think you can make a pretty nice stack, and they only have average of 4.5% ownership. So what we're seeing is Jonathan VR, projected to lead off, is 21% owned. Every other batter is moderately owned. So I think, he's a great fantasy player because of the steals. But if you want to be a little bit more contrarian even, you could take 6 other players from the Orioles.
Yeah, Orioles were one of the teams that came up pretty aggressively on this dummy crunch. And by going to the Orioles, you end up with quite a bit of additional money. Syndergaard and Barrios, Syndergaard and Bieber, Syndergaard and Ray. You can get to all of those spots. I got, Bryce Harper coming up as a one-off outfield bat at $16. Just when you see that, you know that you have, in this case, $23 to split across 2 separate bats after the Orioles stack. I've got one with Yasmani Grandal as the catcher option. That's $29 split between the 2 one-off spots. You can get to an Orioles stack and have a ton of money left over to prioritize 2 additional bats, even with 2 of the high-priced pitchers. You're able to get there with room to spare even. I completely agree. The Orioles look like a really interesting spot, especially when they're not getting as much ownership as you would expect. They get to play in cores too. It's not like they are hitting in Baltimore and they have to ship their stats over. Colorado gets the Colorado stats. I'm surprised that they're not getting a little bit more love. They actually have I was looking at it wrong. I was going to say they have the second most points behind the Rockies in your projections, but I didn't look down for farther enough, so not there. Any other teams that you think we should take a look at, Alex?
Well, I think there's a number of standout teams tonight. One, Boston going up against Wade Miley on 5-team total. Washington against Pablo Lopez. Oakland versus Wade LeBlanc. The Angels versus Drew Smiley. I think there's a number of teams where all these pitchers are going against are pretty average and pretty good offenses. So I think there are definitely a lot of teams that have potential tonight.
Okay, let's talk about the team that I had some interest in earlier today, the Oakland A's. They're projected for what amounts to no ownership. A little bit coming to the returning Chris Davis, 10%. Otherwise, Marcus Semien at 6, Matt Chapman at 2, everybody else at none. This is a team that I think would make up a very interesting 6-man stack. You'll be pretty unique if they happen to be the top team. And this is a lineup loaded with power. It might not be the best park from a home run perspective. Oakland's park limits power pretty aggressively, but they've got the sort of bats that will play in any park. And if you can pay for power in a scenario where no one is owning it, those are, I think, the optimal spots to be in a GPP with, a couple thousand other people. Jake, were you looking at Oakland at all?
Yeah, I mean, looking at their prices, no one above 20 in the projected lineup. You've got Miley on the mound. I'm pretty sure also the Mariners have a bullpen that's struggling quite a bit this season. I'm trying to pull up their numbers on Fangraphs, but Miley's a fine pitcher. But like you mentioned, there's so much upside in this Oakland lineup, and they have an above average chance of being the top stack on a slate with 28 teams. So yeah, I like Oakland quite a bit against Miley. I'm trying to look at
I have Oakland going against Wade LeBlanc.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wade LeBlanc, not Miley.
They're both on the slate today.
They're both on the slate.
Right. We'll get to Miley in a second, but Wade LeBlanc's xFIP on the year is 6.1, which is like insanely bad. I mean, he was pretty good last year, so I'd expect him to bounce back, but we'll see.
And then the Mariners have a 160 WHIP as a bullpen that's only behind the Nationals for worst in the MLB. So they've been actually pretty bad.
Yeah, 160 is like off the charts bad. I mean, the league average is let's see. For all pitchers, the league average WHIP is 130.
Okay. Jake just mentioned bullpen, and I don't think that I've ever asked you this question on a show. How much does bullpen performance come into play for you? Are you paying attention to whether or not people are rested? We know that most relievers are going to be getting a real small sample size. At best, they'll get as many innings across 3 years as a starter would in just one season. So I'm wondering how much of a factor bullpen performance plays in your projections.
Well, one really interesting thing is that if you look at sports betting, the 5-inning line is almost always the money line on 5 innings is almost always the same as the money line for 9 innings. And what to me that says is that the strategy with bullpen is changing based on the dynamics of the game. So if a team is losing, the bullpen arms they're going to throw out there aren't as good, and they're going to continue the chance that they're I guess I should say your team is down 4-1. You're not going to send out your ace bullpen arms in relief. You're saving those for higher leverage situations. So what you're really expecting in the bullpen is that if your stack is going off, they're going to face the weakest arms in the bullpen that they have available, and that's always a good situation, pretty much regardless of the team.
So what I'm hearing is it's not playing a big factor for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really worried about like I'm not really worried about my stack getting blown up because Josh Hader comes out.
Oh, okay.
Closing, because that's not going to happen if your stack's doing well.
Right. That makes me feel good. It's not something that I've ever added into any sheets. It's not something that I've ever paid attention to. So that makes me feel better. I just assume that every inning after the starter is projected as like a league average relief pitcher. It's always seemed like the easiest method to do it, since we don't really know who's coming into the game to begin with.
Right. Yeah, I think the over-unders for games kind of incorporate all that too, if you're using those as part of the projections.
Right. I always assumed that I was getting enough out of that I was probably overthinking it.
Yeah, if you want to get really pro, you could look at the 5-inning line and the full 9-inning line and deduce that the difference between those is the bullpen. But I think it might be more complicated than it's worth.
Marginal gains.
Sure. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Let's take another look at some potential stacks. Okay, so here's another team that I have some interest in today, and I'm anxious to get the opinion from you guys. It feels as though the Phillies and the Brewers are going a little underlooked today. I think that in Milwaukee, a park that plays up to power pretty massively, and two teams that have a lot of power in their lineups. I think Philly stands out. They popped up quite a bit here. You can still get to full Philly stacks with some of the studs. Jake, do you have any interest in the Phillies or the Brewers for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, Eichhoff. So I'd rather have interest, I think, in the Brewers. It's a little bit of a higher implied total, and their prices. I've been more and more looking and trying to like predict who's going to be under owned on this top stack tool because I've been using it so much.
Yeah.
And I would think by the time we get to lock for Yahoo, at least, the Brewers would be close to being undervalued because if Yelich is in the lineup, that's $27. 20 for Braun, whose stock is at 19. Like there's some guys that are the guys that you want to play in this stack that are priced up a little bit for Yahoo, where there's other teams like Colorado, like people will just play a team with a 2 higher implied total at around the same price for their stack. So I like the Brewers quite a bit, even though Eichhoff has been solid. I haven't really looked at the Phillies too much. I don't know, Alex, are you on the Phillies?
I think you could go to the Phillies. It might be a little bit too cute on Yahoo. They only have 2% ownership, but they are about an average stack as far as top stack, 3.4%, 28 game slate. So just a little bit above average. The trouble with stacking the Phillies, though, is so they have 2 batters that are good values at the top of order, McCutchen and Harper. Both above average points per dollar on my projections. And then at the bottom of the order, you have Odubel Herrera and Michael Franco, both $8 on Yahoo. So extreme bargain bats that are projected for good value. But then the other batters are pretty poor value. So if you want to get the best stack from the team, it's a little bit harder to get there.
This might be a scenario where you're less likely to get to the full 6.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to analyze it. Yeah, because one guy that is especially poor in my projections is Gene Segura.
Yeah,
he's a pretty good bat, a little bit below average power, but he's above average stolen bases. He has a great batting average on the year of 298, which is really good. Gives you more potential for the RBIs. But that price is the highest on the team at $18, which is pretty hard to justify when you got Bryce Harper and McCutchen on the team and Hoskins. Like, how did he end up at that price? It just makes no sense.
Yeah, he's expensive everywhere, and it's kind of crazy. So we were talking about the top stack tool, and I have it pulled up on the screen right now for anybody that's never seen it. Just Alex's percent chance of being the top scoring stack, the aggregate ownership percentage, and then the percentage chance of being the top value. And there's one team that stands out to me that I want to pick your brain on. We're showing the Padres to be the second most owned stack on Yahoo today, and they do grade out as an above average top stack, but nothing crazy. They probably like 8th, just eyeballing it. But they have a really solid top value. I'm wondering how much does that combination between top stack and top value matter to you when you look at a team like the Padres who are projecting for, rounded up 12% of the ownership?
Yeah, I try to avoid these teams that are really high owned, but really good value in general. Because I feel like although your overall team projection is high, the chance of it being the best on the slate is pretty low, and that combination is kind of troublesome to me.
Okay.
But I do think for cash, there are a few Padres that really jump off the page. And as far as one-offs, if you need to make your stack, if you need to make all the salaries fit, getting a guy like Ian Kinsler, if he's leading off for $9, that's pretty sick.
Yeah. And I guess the same sort of story going for the Marlins, the Mets, where they're coming out as incredible value. Is that largely just dictated because of the ownership going to pitching?
Yeah, I think what you're gonna see is a lot of people are using optimizers to construct their lineups. So what you're gonna get is people are gonna gravitate towards Ray and Syndergaard and everything. Filling out the lineup is going to be kind of revolving around that. And when you got really high value guys on the Marlins and the Padres, that's going to be a very popular combination.
Okay. Yeah, it's something that's always stood out to me, just wondering what's that best way to manage ceiling and value and ownership when it gets to be such an extreme, like the Mets and Marlins both being 17 and 19% respectively to be the top value at some point in time. That gets to be a really crazy number.
So, Alex, would you say that you would more be in favor of fading the chalk lineup construction rather than chalk stacks themselves? Because, like, I doubt you'd be fading Colorado on this slate. You might just be fading Colorado on Yahoo with San Diego or Miami because that's what the ownership is pushing everyone towards. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you just don't want to go chalk in the whole lineup. So it's like if you have Colorado, Syndergaard, and Ray, your chance of winning isn't going to be very good just because like so many other people have that same combination.
So that'd be a good spot to do Colorado, let's just say Barrios and Ray, or Syndergaard and Canning.
Yeah, you really want to mix it up a little bit, like somehow. When you have such a chalky stack, like the Rockies, I mean, they're projected to like have 5 times the average ownership on tonight's slate with 28 games. So that's pretty sick. So do you guys want to kind of build some lineups here?
Yeah, we can. Let's do it.
Sure.
All right, awesome. So I guess how do you guys identify, like, do you guys start with pitchers? Do you start with stacks, or how do you go about it?
I mean, you should start with the stack, right?
Yeah. So let's pick a stack and we can kind of build a lineup here. Let's go to the Yahoo page too, because I think that'll make it a little bit easier to like contextualize.
Yeah,
sure.
Grab it. Enter contest. There we go.
Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Maybe we could start with the Colorado stack and just show people how people are being forced into playing Marlins and Padres. I know we talked about it a little bit, but just quickly, if you want to do that, and then just like a stack that's off the board after that.
It sounds good, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, even just right away, knowing that we have Tony Wolters at $11 to fill a catcher spot, or Tapia at 16, Desmond at 20. Those are the 3 guys that are not getting any ownership whatsoever. Are we looking to grab the 5 guys that are getting owned and piece in one of those, or is this going to be a grab Tapia, grab Desmond, figure it out afterwards spot?
Yeah, I think let's try to make our chalk stack, and then we'll see where the pivots are.
Perfect.
Story Arenado.
Yep, Arenado in, Story in.
And then after that, it'd probably be, who just mentioned? Tapia and Desmond?
We need Dahl and Reynolds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Dahl in.
Tapia and Desmond are the guys that are overpriced, I see.
Reynolds in. And then we need Brendan Rodgers would be the 5th.
Yep.
So who do we want to use as this, or do we want to fill in the 6th later? Leave ourselves a little. It's either going to be a catcher or an outfielder. So.
Yeah, let's fill in the pitchers, and then we can kind of see how much we have left.
Okay. So the chalk pairing here would clearly be Syndergaard and Ray. Do we want to start there and make our moves after the lineup gets built, or make the pivot now?
Let's just let's start with the chalk, and then we can see like what are the best pivots.
Perfect. So Syndergaard and Ray. So right now we have $30 remaining, $10 a player for a catcher and 2 outfielders, which honestly feels pretty manageable. Although the problem lies in that Tapia and Desmond are 16 and 20 respectively. So it's going to get thin real quick.
So that's a good point. Like maybe the 6-man stack isn't the easiest to do. So like we could consider just stacking up 5 guys to make it easier. Or one thing a lot of people might do is they get that mini stack in there with 3 Marlins, 3 Padres to fill out the roster.
Sure.
Kinsler. Or we filled out second, right?
You're the boss here. I'm trusting your judgment. I want to know how you're going to build this lineup. That's the most. Nobody wants to know how I'll do it.
All right. So what I'm going to do is have the projections up here on my screen, and I'm just going to filter by position. Which ones do we need to roster?
We need a catcher and 2 outfielders.
Awesome. So I have it sorted by value here. There are some guys that are just absurd value on today's slate. The highest value is Charlie Tilson at $7 in outfield.
Okay.
Oh, leading off. There you go.
You want me to slot him in right now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I guess.
Tilson in. So now we have $23 left to spend between catcher and outfield.
$23. That's pretty good. So we might have to. Do we already have? We might want to get Walters in there. He's $12, right?
Okay. That makes sense to me. That gets us our 6-man Rocky stack, and now we have $12 to get an outfielder, which feels like an infinite amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, all we need is 7, so 12 should be a breeze.
Yeah. Highest guy 12 and under in your projections is Curtis Granderson that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with our Miami theme.
Yeah. Anybody else that's close to... We also have Adam Eaton at $11. Not all that different of a projection, but no ownership really going to him, whereas Granderson projected for 23% on our last run.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy ownership.
Yeah.
So I think that would be our like chalky like roster construction, and then we can kind of figure out where we're gonna differentiate.
Yeah, so we have, for just to sum it up, just in case people can't see the screen right now, Noah Syndergaard and Robbie Ray, they are the 2 most owned projected pitchers. They are also the 2 pitchers we've loaded in. We have a 6-man Colorado Rockies stack, Walters, Reynolds, Rogers, Arenado, Story, David Dahl, with a one-off Charlie Tilson at $7 and a one-off Curtis Granderson at $12. I don't want to say that this particular lineup is going to be very popular, but it's very close.
It's going to be 2v2 or 3v3 away.
Yep.
A lot of different ones, I would bet.
So, Alex, in your opinion, what's enough tweaking? Is that 2 guys? Is it 1 guy? Is it just one of the pitchers?
So, do we have all of the heart of the order guys in our lineup here?
We got 1 through 4, and then 7, 8.
Okay, so that makes it a little bit tougher to differentiate with the stack. Right now, Tapia and Desmond though are only 3 and 1% owned. So if we get one of those 2, I think our lineup will be significantly differentiated, because if someone else has a 6 stack from the Rockies, they're more likely to have the 6 we have, and that creates a 2-player separation.
Okay. So who would be the priority then?
So I think Tapia is 16 and Desmond is 20. So Tapia is probably the easier one to fit in.
I assume we're going to pull Granderson out then, since he is at 12. And putting Tapia in there leaves us at -4.
Yeah.
So the next spot that we have to move assuredly is one of our pitchers.
Yeah, I think we gotta pick one pitcher that might be a little bit off the board.
Okay.
If we're gonna make this lineup work.
What about Barrios? A quarter of the ownership of Syndergaard.
We need to save $4 though. So we need to get to 45. So it would be Walker Buehler, Shane Bieber, or we need to go a little bit lower than that, or we throw Robbie Ray out and we make a move to someone 34 or lower.
Well, we could go to the other side of the game and get Pomerantz.
We can.
Although
There you go.
He's also projected to be pretty high on. The value is pretty sick there. That might be like still pretty chalky because he's the obvious pitcher at that salary. He's only 28. The value is probably higher than most pitchers, so that might actually make our lineup pretty chalky. Maybe the better pivot is we can. So we're going from Ray. Maybe we go up to a pitcher that's a little bit higher priced, or I guess we could switch off Syndergaard and go to someone else like Barrios.
Or we could go down to Canning. What's his ownership from Syndergaard, and then have $12 left.
Canning is 8% owned.
Yeah, there you go.
Syndergaard to Bieber drops us the $4 and fills our full fills out our lineup to $200. Just throwing that out there as someone who is a bit of a believer.
Oh my god.
I shouldn't be proud of that. Don't worry, I'll eat my feelings later tonight at 6:00.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I mean, you gotta love yourself, so.
I'm gonna hate myself after tonight.
That was a song reference, Josh.
Yeah, you're man. Come on.
You said you were a believer, and then you didn't get
I'm a Shane believer, not a Justin believer.
Well, it's too bad this isn't a celebrity basketball game because Bieber is an all-star in that.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, I mean that is a natural move to make, to go Bieber, Ray, 6-man Rockies. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, we need to make another pivot. So we took Granderson out of the lineup and replaced him with Tapia. We now have 7 Rockies.
Oh, snap.
Maybe we get how much left?
So, well, I'm going to pivot back to Syndergaard now. Now we just need to grab one of these Rockies bats and remove them. So, Alex, who would be the most likely guy to drop?
I think the best guy to drop is Brendan Rodgers because the value is sick. He's batting 7th and he's only $9, cheaper than everyone else. And right now, his projected ownership though is 32%. So when you switch off him, you're gonna be differentiated from the other Rocky stacks, and it's not like he's one of the best players in the lineup.
Okay, so let's fill him in with, I would assume, some other very cheap second baseman, and then we can hash out that actual pitcher pivot that we need to make. I was totally forgetting that 7 Colorado bats wasn't going to work.
Maybe next year.
So I'm seeing Starlin Castro standing out in your projections at a cheap price tag. Ian Kinsler not getting any ownership as well, only at $9. I'm guessing that you'd be looking somewhere in that direction.
Yeah, I think Starlin Castro is a natural pivot. He's the minimum, and that just allows us to have that flexibility with the rest of the lineup.
Okay. So if I slot in Starlin Castro, we are now $2 short of where we need to be. This still has Syndergaard and Ray in it, but we need to make up $2 by pivoting there. Doesn't really help. That still puts us in the Bieber territory. It's still $1 short of Griffin Canning. What's our move? Is it just being a believer? Is that enough?
Man, that's a hard choice to make because Bieber, you're sacrificing like six points essentially in projection. But if that's what we got to do to make the roster work, I guess that's a price we got to be willing to take, I guess.
If you're willing to drop to Bieber, that gives us $2 more. Would you want to move from Starlin Castro back to Ian Kinsler?
I think, yeah, we might as well. I think Castro will be higher on just because he's $7. Ian Kinsler, let's see. You got Ian Kinsler's only 8.5 points per dollar. Starlin Castro's 10. So I think the ownership will be a little bit less on Kinsler. And let me just see if I can find him here.
The ownership?
Yeah.
9%.
9%. And what's Castro at?
13.
Castro is 13. Yeah, Josh said it.
So we're getting a significant gain there in projection and ownership. So that's a pretty good pivot.
So
Yeah.
there it is. 6-man lineup. Shane Bieber, my man. Robbie Ray, the 6-man Colorado stack of Walters, Reynolds, Arenado, Story, Dahl, Tapia, a one-off Charlie Tilson, a one-off Ian Kinsler, and we just built a lineup on Yahoo.
It's pretty good.
We walk through what I would say are very relevant questions that come up to anybody that's hand building a lineup. Where to pivot, how much to pivot, and as you can see, it's not a lot. It's one spot, 2 spots, and you're getting yourself into a construction that is unlikely to be repeated.
Yeah, I think the main thing is carving out your path to victory. So the most likely team to succeed tonight is the Rockies, and we figured out everyone's on Brendan Rodgers, who's on the Rockies. So if you don't have him and you have Desmond or you have Tapia, and Rodgers has a worse game than either one of them, maybe Rodgers goes 0 for 4 even, and then you have a huge advantage over the other people with that stack.
I like it. There's a freebie for you guys if you're trying to play on Yahoo. You can't get into the no management fee tournament right now, but they are still open for. What else do we have still open that's that I consider to be interesting tournaments to get into?
They have $5.
Oh yeah, and the 15 is still open. $2K to first, $15 entry, 1,100 people in the prize pool. It's $15K prize pool, or you can get into the $5 or the $1 even. You can for $10. You can get 10 entries into a 1,500 guaranteed prize pool at a management fee that's lower than anywhere else you'll find.
Yeah, good payout structure in both of the $1 and the $5. Well, I haven't looked at the 15 just yet. But
yeah, they've got really solid payouts across the board.
Yeah. Very friendly to the casual, I think.
Sir Dave in YouTube chat just said, "Can we build a cash lineup?" That's sort of what we did to start here. We loaded in the relatively chalky guys coming from Colorado. We started with Curtis Granderson, who's got quite a bit of ownership. We started with the 2 chalk pitchers. That's really the path that you would be taking to largely build out a cash lineup.
Yeah, I think
the pivots would have been a little different.
One guy I probably wouldn't end up in cash is Walters. He was $12, and I think that he's not a very good player at all.
No.
The team total is a mitigating factor, but let's see. His value was just only average. So I think one pivot I would make is I'd probably punt catcher for someone who's 7, maybe someone batting higher in the order.
Wellington Castillo possibly projected to hit 4th, minimum salary, has the highest projection of anybody in the $7 range in your projections.
Yeah, that's huge. Like, that's great value, and catcher isn't really a spot where there are a lot of great players. So punting that, spending up on a different position makes a lot of sense.
Or we could even save a couple dollars and go to Ramos versus Gregory Soto.
Yeah. Would you have interest in spending up a little bit, actually? 2 additional dollars from Walters is Yasmani Grandal, second highest projection in your projections, Alex, but he's projected for 39% ownership. Would that be a decent spot to go to and then try to find another $2 elsewhere?
Yeah, I think in cash, like you just want those high-owned guys. They're high-owned for reasons. That makes a lot of sense. And one guy who's really expendable, it's hard to pull him out, but Arenado, that $27 price tag is super high. So I think maybe that would be a spot where you don't want to take him in cash, but you got to have him in your Rocky stack in the GPP.
Yeah, you can go to someone like a $16 Matt Carpenter, who has the second highest projection for you at third base. You saved $11 off of that. He's got essentially the exact same ownership. Really frees you up to make better point per dollar plays than maybe you are with Arenado.
Man, I don't even know where we'd spend that $11.
Back up to Syndergaard, that's for sure.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if I have an extra $11, I'm not a believer any longer. I think that's probably it, guys, unless you guys want to touch on anything else that you think we missed.
I think we got it all. I think, it was an interesting discussion.
Alex, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on?
No, I think that was a good example of kind of hand building and trying to make these decisions on like the micro level. If you're entering like 10 lineups, you gotta be a little bit more efficient, use some fantasy cruncher, stuff like that to make it not take you all afternoon.
Yeah, and one mention there, there is no CSV import for Yahoo. So that doesn't mean that you can't use Fantasy Cruncher to generate specific lineups. You know, if you say, okay, I know I want to have a Rockies lineup, you can set that 6-man stack to be the Rockies and then crunch out 100 lineups that you can look through and sift through so that you don't have to do as much of the manual manipulation and the bounce around that we just did. That work will be done for you. All you have to do then is just kind of use the visual of scrolling through them. Should be very helpful. Then you just have to hop over to Yahoo and manually enter.
Yeah, and one thing you can do to really speed up the process is you can sort by ownership, you can sort by projection, and eliminate those ones that don't grade out well in one of those metrics.
Absolutely. All right, that's where we're at, guys. MLB Strategy is the promo code. 50% off your first month with us. Any monthly package you choose, including packages with Fantasy Cruncher, you can get 50% off just by entering that promo code when you sign up at awesemo.com. Thank you so much to Yahoo for being our presenting sponsor for our weekly strategy show, the Deeper Dive show, which will be coming up at 4:45 today, and for the Early Bird podcast that happens every night that gets uploaded in the morning. So I'm going to drop the link into chat one last time. If you're looking to sign up at Yahoo, please use that link. Helps us out tremendously. It won't change anything for you. And then you can use the promo code AWESEMO to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. That is as good as cash to enter any contests that they're running.
I want to throw out one more tout here.
Okay.
I don't know about you, Jake, but I will definitely be watching Live Before Lock tonight to see the pizza roll eating challenge.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Our buddy Josh is going to be attempting to down 100 pizza rolls within the hour. So we'll see how that one goes. I believe in him. I think he's gonna do it, but it sounds like more people are of the mindset that you're not going to do it.
Yeah, the other had some serious juice on it last time I checked.
Yeah, I know we're gonna move the line probably sometime during the Deeper Dive, and we'll get some more votes in. But yeah, 6:00 today, Live Before Lock. Jake and Chris will be carrying the show to start while I just shovel pizza bites down my throat like a gluttonous pig. But all in the name of charity, potentially. We said $5 per uneaten pizza bite under 100 earlier that I will donate to a local food bank. We can bump that up. I'm not going to be. I feel bad because I'm going to eat 100, and I don't want them to get nothing. So we'll have to figure something out for when I succeed. But if I do fail, I will offset that with a bit of a donation to people that need it.
Nice.
So thank you guys for joining us. Tune in, Deeper Dive 4:45. Live Before Lock to watch me eat pizza, which is everybody's dream on a Friday night, coming up at 6 p.m. Thanks to Jake. Thanks to Alex for joining me. Thanks for going through this entire process, and thanks to Yahoo. We'll talk to you guys next Friday.